What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Stereotherapy Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa, and if it's your first time here, Stereotherapy is a podcast that showcases the importance of music and mental health. We invite guests to share their own story of how music has made a positive impact in their lives. If you like what you hear, remember to share, like, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. I know you hear that often, but it really helps our show out and other shows like ours. You can also head over to www.stereotherapypod.com. You can subscribe there, listen to the podcast, read our podcast blog, and check out some other cool stuff over there. We have a brand new site for you too. Today, I have Justine back here with me to start our shows celebrating the albums turning 20 this year. There are so many important records that came out back in 2003, and I can't wait to dive in and share these albums that are important to so many people. Justine, I'm going to let you just take it away with your pick today.
Yeah, hey everybody. So my first album that I'm going to talk about is Evanescence Fallen.
Oh, there we go.
Yes. The first time that I had heard Bring Me to Life, I was just blown away by Amy Lee's powerful voice.
Mm-hmm.
Her voice is just absolutely beautiful, and paired with those heavy guitars, like my mind was just completely blown.
Mm-hmm.
I always envied metal and punk female singers that have that just loud and gritty voice like Brody Daye from the Distillers. But I'm sadly a soprano, so I can't do those hardcore screams. I will try, but it's just not right.
Yeah, me either.
But when it came to Evanescence, I would practice singing along and try to strengthen my voice and my range. And I have such fond memories of just blasting the CD on my CD player with a huge Amy Lee poster on my wall with dreams that maybe one day I could have a band like hers. My mom ended up getting me tickets to the Fallen tour, actually. And me and my best friend went to a Goodwill before, and we wanted to get some outfits before. And so I found this old formal short 80s dress. It was black on top and had this like red tulle underneath and like a big red bow on the side. And so of course I had to get it. And I wore it with fishnets and army boots because what else would just make the perfect
Yeah.
like, Evanescence outfit, you know?
Yeah.
And we managed to get a spot right on the stage. So I was able to see her up close and personal. And it was just such a wonderful show as well. Like, I was so excited because they also did Zero by Smashing Pumpkins. And
Oh,
she did such a good job on that song. And
I
that
love
song
that
is
song.
just, yes, it's one of my favorite Smashing Pumpkins songs. So I was
Same.
so excited. And my best friend that went with me, also super huge in the Smashing Pumpkins. We just looked at each other and we're just like, oh my God, like,
Yeah.
this is the best. And just to end on a little bit of trivia, I wanted to mention, did you know that when Bring Me Up Bring Me to Life, that the guy's part wasn't originally supposed to be in it?
Wow.
A producer said that they needed to add it because he felt that having a single and having it be only a female's vocal just was not interesting enough to get fans. And so they added that guy's part on there. They literally just grabbed some random dude to come in here and do this part. And it's funny to think of now because all of us make fun of that dude now. Like,
Oh, yeah.
in that part, just like randomly yelling in the song, not really adding so much substance to it. But the fact is, he wasn't even supposed to be on it, and except for this producer who said it was necessary. And like, I don't even remember that guy's name at this point. I don't know his band. I don't know anything about him, but
Yeah,
I'll
no.
never forget Amy. Like, there's no forgetting Amy. And so I think it's kind of funny because you don't hear them adding any males now to their
No.
vocals.
No. And I'm not shocked that that producer had said that. And I mean, still, it's like that with female singers or front women
Yes.
to this day. And it's like, she could have absolutely commanded that song. And I mean, she did. I mean, again, I
Yeah.
remember her, and I feel like I loved that record. And I remember truly loving having someone like Amy Lee as well, like having that and people like that. And I gravitated towards Brody too. Like Brody is one of my
Yes.
favorites. And it's like having those front women and those powerhouses, and especially in that metal, punk, or just rock or
Yeah.
whatever alternative situation. Like Shirley Manson of Garbage is that same way. And it's like,
Yes.
I feel like now I need to go back and listen to that album because I haven't in a hot minute. Um, but I think I'm gonna now have to go back. So I want to
Oh
hear
yeah.
like if anyone else loves this record too, like let us know because I do. And now that's my homework for today is I'll have homework later too, but that homework like for sure. But my album is I'm gonna choose The Ugly Organ by Cursive. And Cursive really just changed so much for me musically in some ways. And like I was always that kid that I felt was always going to go that alternative route with music I loved and what I liked at a young age. And but I was always into hardcore pop punk. And I guess, if you have to put a label on it, I guess emo. Like I guess, but I was always gravitating towards sounds like that. But there was something about Cursive that was just so different and completely changed so much for me that to this day, I credit them because I'm that person where if someone says, oh, this is weird, or oh, this sounds not like mainstream, and it's not even like that I was looking for stuff that wasn't mainstream, but it just, I look and I'll dive and I'll be like, oh, like Me Without You is another band that like I really love, and some people think they're weird and sounds, but I
That's why they're
love
good though.
they're so good. And Cursive is so much like that. And I think because I had this record too, and hearing Tim Kasher and his vocal ability, like it really pulled me into any of those songs. And live, it was just next level. Like I'll never forget the first time I saw Cursive, and it was around this touring part of this record. And still to this day, I don't know many people in my life that appreciate Cursive the way they should. And I'm hoping that these album anniversaries, whether it's a Twitter posting it, a website posting it, people listening to us, or any other podcast doing it, they revisit some of these records. And especially if you're kind of new to this genre and you're getting into like the resurgence happening on TikTok, go
Yeah.
back because I do. I love this. And I think I don't have this really deeper meaning here with this record, or back at my age, I could relate to some of the undertones and like lyrically, definitely not, especially if you listen to that record. Like I couldn't, but the way it was written was just so special. And this record just sank its teeth into me and didn't let go for anything. And I find myself all these years literally revisiting this and feeling the same way about it. And this record really allowed me to broaden my music taste, like I said earlier, and branch out to things that aren't that radio friendly and be open to all sounds around me, even if I had to really dig for it, whether it's, I'm going to date myself and say Pure Volume or any of those sites, digging deep and finding it. And I mean, for me too, like hearing Greta on the cello, like, which was the only time Cursive had this sound, I think. So again, if I'm wrong, you can come for me. But I think that was the only time Cursive had that. And it was something completely different to the mix. And what I love and loved about this record is how aggressive it was at times with the cello. And I hadn't heard anything like that, especially with the cello, like in any music I was listening to. And if you've really slept on this record, please check it out. And my must listen tracks I'm going to throw in, obviously, Art is Hard, The Recluse, A Gentleman Caller, and butchered the song. And honestly, just listen to the whole record because I think so many people sleep on Cursive and have slept on Cursive. And I think that it's just such a special band. And I hope maybe even listening to me gush about it, someone's like, oh, I'm going to go check it out because it's so good. But I mean,
Yeah.
did you like that record? Or did
I
you think anything?
I didn't get into Cursive, but
Yeah,
like
see,
I remember the album art
Right.
in my brain.
Hmm.
Like, I can
I
remember what the album art looks like.
Yeah.
I never got into them,
Yeah.
but, like, I knew a lot of people that loved them a lot.
Yeah.
So, it's, like, one of those things that I'll probably have to look back and listen to as well.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I agree with, like, the whole resurgence thing of everything happening for, like, the emo crowd. I think
Yeah.
it's wonderful seeing these kids nowadays just getting really into it, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, it makes the nostalgia just hit so much,
Hmm.
and you're like, so just so happy. Like, I don't know about anybody else, but it makes me so happy to see these young kids and the things that made me happy when I was younger, and they're just discovering it,
Yeah.
and it's making it come back, and it's just like, oh, that makes me so happy for them that they can, experience this as well,
Yeah.
and with all these bands, like, wanting to come back or anything, like, oh, it just gives me the happy feels, like,
Hmm.
and I love seeing these kids getting all emoed out, like,
Yeah, I do.
I just think it's so great.
The Hot Topic kids are back too. They are
Yes,
back. And legit Hot
yes.
Topic kids too. So
I know, it really is. Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
So for you, so then we'll see. All right, what's going to be your second album?
All right, my next album I'm gonna talk about is AFI's Sing Sorrow.
Yes.
Yes. And it's so funny because I feel like this album for a lot of people is kind of 50-50.
Yeah.
You have some people that just absolutely loved it like me, but you also have some people where it was like they stopped listening to AFI before this album came out.
Yep.
And I totally understand that. And I don't have anything against anybody that had that happen. It's just personally for me, this album hit hard and it was beautiful.
Mhm.
And I happen to still listen to it to this day. Um, and then I've had again, funny random tidbit. I like I'll probably be known for this whenever I'm on the podcast, like just random, really weird,
Bring
like
it.
personal life things and stuff. So I my AOL name back in the day was Makeshift Wing because of the song Paper Airplanes,
Uh-huh.
which in parentheses is Makeshift Wings.
Yep.
And it was one of my favorite songs from the record, but also I just thought I was super cool.
Oh,
Because
for sure.
it was one of those things where it's like at least it wasn't like a super weird name like my hotmail name was. Like that one was weird.
Oh, we
And
all
but
had
this
them.
one like, this one was like one of those like I am super cool. Nobody else had this.
Mhm.
And like I'm like, everybody knows if you're a true AFI fan, you know this song. So you'll know what my AOL
Yep.
name means. Like AOL and the whole like music thing connected to it is fantastic. If you're too young to understand that, like you missed out, man.
Yep.
But there wasn't a single song on this album that I would skip. You have fun ones like Girls Not Grey. You have a slow, beautiful one like This Time Imperfect, which, by the way, was a hidden track. And I would struggle so much trying to fast forward to it
Mhm.
in my portable CD player because if you press too hard, it would go back to track number one and I'd have
Yes.
to start all over again
Yep.
because it didn't have this like immediate cut to the hidden track. You had to have this big long pause, but also they had this little like spoken poem in between it as well before you would get to the song. And I loved that song so much. I was willing to risk it all to try to get to it. Oh my gosh, but it was worth it because that song is wonderful.
Mhm.
But the kids today will never understand that. And you know what? They should be super grateful because
Yep.
it was awful.
Yeah.
and there's also you have hard tracks on this album, like Death of Seasons, like that song hits so hard
Mhm.
and I love it so much.
Yep.
And I went to my first Warp Tour in 2003, and they were there for Sing the Sorrow. And the fan meet and greet was going on. And of course, it cut off right in front of me
Of
and the
course.
line. And I was so devastated because I wanted to meet them so much. And of course, they had the kind of tent where there weren't any sides on it. So,
Oh,
me being the
yeah.
creeper that I am, I like went around a little bit of the tent just to be able to get a real close glimpse of Davy with his long dark locks.
Oh.
And listen, I was 14 and I was weird But I mean, I still stare at people that I think are pretty because I don't know how to flirt. So maybe I'm just weird. But okay, so maybe it wasn't just an age thing, but I had to do it. And luckily, I was able to see them again on tour with Circa Survive, and I
Mhm.
think it was like 2017-ish when they toured with them. And it was for oh, I forget the album name. It's the one that has like the blood drops on the
Oh,
cover.
yeah, I can't think
You
of
know
it
which one I'm
either.
talking about?
Yeah.
Which honestly ended up being a really good album. I ended up listening to that album after because I stopped listening to them after December Underground was the last album I listened to with AFI, and then I
Yeah,
just stayed with
same.
my older albums. Yeah, and so when they were touring with Circa, I was like, "Okay, I'm so excited to be able to see them and hear these
Mhm.
older songs I love." So I listened to that album, and that album actually was super good. I felt like it took back almost to like Sing the Sorrow age. Like it was really good. But I got to see them with Circa, which was amazing, and
Oh, I
it was
bet.
so good, and they were so amazing live, and they did so many old songs, which made me feel really good because, like, that's what I wanted to be able to hear from them, you know?
Yeah.
And I was so sad that they did not make this Sing the Sorrow anniversary tour, but I am sure, absolutely sure that everybody that managed to get to go out to California had the absolute time of their lives.
Oh, yeah, I know somebody, if they're listening, I know somebody that actually got to go to that show and said it was amazing. I mean, it
Ugh,
looked
I can only
amazing.
imagine. Oh, I know. I saw the pictures and everything. Oh,
And I mean, I loved and love this record still to this day. And I remember, gosh, the last time I saw AFI, I want to say it was 2013 and it was at Riot Fest. And they were kind of in that weird time. It was like 6:37.
yeah.
So it was like dusk, it was September. And it was a really super rainy day. And if you were there, you know, like that day, I think that the day Brand New played, or maybe it was someone else, but it was just a gloomy day. So perfect AFI weather.
I was gonna say that is perfect
And
AFI
it was
atmosphere.
everything. And I mean, I made my boyfriend at the time just stay later. Like he kind of wanted to go, and I was like, no, like I need to see at least, whatever I can because I see the smoke, I see the weather, I love AFI, and made him stay. And I know he got mad, and that's life. If you're dating me who loves music so much, you got to kind of deal with that.
Yeah,
And I saw
exactly.
the purple lights, the everything. It was like so perfect. Like I literally got so jacked up just watching AFI and like all memories of this record. And I feel like just AFI is one of those timeless bands that I feel like, like when we talked about Circa, you really either love AFI or you don't. I don't think there
Yes.
is an in between. Maybe there is, but
There could be. I mean, because they did kind of switch their sound a little bit, like
yeah.
their first album, super punk,
Yes. Yeah.
and then they kind of got more of like, some people would say emo. I say that
Right.
it kind of borders emo and goth because there is some
Yeah.
kind of like goth undertones to it. And which for me, still right up my alley. So like
Right.
I I was okay with that. But
right.
people that loved them mainly for like their punk background was like I can understand why you were like, okay, well, that's not the same. But for me, I love punk and I love goth culture. And obviously I have my solid emo choices. So like I was still down. I was like, still love it, you know?
No, for sure. And I mean, Silver and
Yeah.
Cold was my jam. And that video of Silver and Cold, like you
Oh
go back
yes.
and watch it, it was like such a theatrical like thing. And like I can still see it, like Davies, like the smoke of his mouth. Like I could still the fog or the whatever in his breath or whatever. But like
Yes.
that literally and going back, but like, you if you're a new fan, too, like Dancing Through Sunday, the Celluloid Dream, those were my go-tos on that record. And still, when it like if I'm on shuffle or anything and I hear those, I keep them on. Like I'm not like changing, like, I'm not in the mood. Like, no,
Yeah.
like it's so awesome. And I mean, while this album is different than AFI, it's still in that year, people. So you got to think like this year was just wild. What was
Yeah.
released, and I'm gonna go Thrice, the artist in the ambulance, and anyone that knows me knows how much I just adore Thrice. Like G is my fiance for people that don't know. If I ever just randomly say that, but he told me flat out. He is like, I don't know many people that like Thrice like you and how you speak about Thrice.
That's so
Uh,
funny.
and he's like, I don't know. And I just feel that they are a band that has aged like such a fine wine. And I stand by that. And they recently have created some of their best work. And I feel like that some just didn't give it a chance or love it or, gave it the love it deserved. But Thrice is a band that constantly to me like blows me away with each of their new release. And I truly just am left with goosebumps. They're another one of those. And they're some of the kindest people. I got to meet Dustin at a super small, tiny venue back in DeKalb, Illinois, the House Cafe. And he was one of the kindest people. And I have a picture floating around there somewhere. But Thrice is just another band that, like, especially with this record, changed my music world in so many ways with this record. And I feel like I remember first hearing this 20 years ago, and gosh, I was 17. Oh my God. But being completely blown away because, again, at the time, I was into that pop punk or, hardcore bands or just punk, anything I could get my hands on. And Thrice just really hit in a very different way for me. And I feel like they were that perfect band to be into what I was at in that given taste at the time. But I mean, on this record, you have Under a Killing Moon, Paper Tigers, Cold Cash and Cold Hearts, The Melting Point of Wax. And like, I could just go through each song and talk about it, but nobody wants to sit here for that. So I'm not going to do that. But just know it's such an important record. And I remember seeing Thrice early on and just made me completely in love with them. And this is one of the most important records in my music world. And they just put out a revisited version of this record and some guests on it. And I think it sounds so clean and, dare I say, so much better. Like, not that it had to sound better, but it just is so tight and just so good. And I feel like I recommend it to anyone. If you didn't get into the Artist and the Ambulance, or you're just wanting to revisit it, I mean, it's called Revisited, but like, check it out for sure because it is so good, especially Stare at the Sun they did with Andy Hull of Manchester Orchestra.
Oh, I
And
love him.
it sounds so good with him on it. Like, I always love Stare at the Sun, but like that song with Andy on it is so good. So if anything you take from this, go listen to that because I feel like a lot of people that loved this record at the time were searching for something different. And to this day, I stand by that Thrice was kind of ahead of the time, and they still are in my, like, musically to me. And I mean, please check it out and report back what you think because as I'm recording, I have 2 prints of Thrice songs around me that I got from, I'm going to plug him, Now Spinning Prince. He's a follower of ours, and I'm just going to plug him because
Yeah,
a lover
you
of
should.
Thrice, a lover of Thrice as I'm talking about this, but they're such an important band, and this record to me started it all. And yeah, I mean, I don't know, were you into Thrice at all during that
Um,
era, or probably not? I don't know.
I know, like, I didn't get into them a whole lot, but I did see them alive a couple times because they would be touring with, like, Circa, and
Right.
I
Yeah.
think I might have seen them with somebody else too before, and, like, their live performance is amazing, like,
Yeah.
whether you like them or not, and I feel like I gotta say, like, the one thing I know this is probably, like, feels, like, weird and random, but, like, he covered Lord's,
Yes.
Buzz Cut Season, which is one of my favorite Lorde songs, and he did it so good.
Oh my God, Dustin, seriously, not only that, but when I saw him, he did Counting Crows, Round Here, nailed it.
Yeah.
He's nailed Wrecking Ball by Miley Cyrus.
I love that he does that where it's, like, totally a different genre but
Mm-hmm.
sings it anyways, and I
Uh,
love when people do that because it makes a song completely different, you
yeah.
know?
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure. And like that's one of the things I love about Thrice. Even like I feel like even if you're not a fan and you see them live, you're still walking away with such a great show. And like
Oh,
I'm gonna
absolutely.
I'm gonna say this too. Like I saw Thrice with Circa twice, like back in the day and then recently when they were here. And I have to say, like Thrice for me, I was just like, whoa. And I love Circa. Circa did great too. But I was just like, whoa, Thrice. Like I was sitting there just blown away yet again. And yes, that's my rant about that record in Thrice. I won't. But, oh, and then if you do like Thrice, don't sleep on Dustin's solo records either, because if you like the covers or stuff like that, very different than Thrice, but so good too. And I guess, what is your last album for this episode, this series? I think I may guess it, but what is
Yeah.
another album that really impacted you that was released in 20, I almost said 2023,
Oh my
2003?
gosh, I know. It's like, what year is this
Yeah.
at this point? Oh my gosh. So my last album is the Dresden Dolls self-titled album.
Hmm.
The first time I heard this, I was just head over heels. They're so different.
Yeah.
The way they combine cabaret with their music is just, it's so cool. Like, and that's the thing too, like it helps to see them in a live performance. I own the DVD that they have of their
Hmm.
concert performance, and being able to see how they perform on top of their music is just, they put on a show. Like, it's
Hmm.
not just music, it's a show, and it's amazing. So if you've never heard them, you definitely need to look up some videos of their performances. But they have such amazing lyrics from Amanda, and Brian's drumming is just amazing. He is such a awesome drummer. They're fun, they're talented, and they're relatable. The instrument that's besides my voice that I've always felt the most compelled to has been the piano.
Hmm.
I played it for years, and I would challenge myself when I was younger of how fast I could play songs. Like, even if it wasn't a song that was meant to be fast, I wanted to see how fast I could play without goofing it up
Hmm.
and see if I could be like super fast at it. And if you've never heard them, Amanda plays some of the most difficult fast piano parts. Um, and but also she is somebody who did not learn to read music. She
Wow.
is the type of person who did it by ear and learned to play like that. She does not read music. So, and they ended up putting out piano books for their albums,
Oh,
and
wow.
she had to learn how to take her piano parts and put them on a sheet of music because she doesn't read music.
Yeah.
So she ended up releasing one for this album, and I ended up getting that.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and I love it because not only is it piano parts, but you have these amazing like photo shoots they did and artwork in it, because like they're not just musicians, they're artists. Like,
Hmm.
it's amazing. And I got it in hopes of like maybe one day, maybe I'll be able to try to pick up piano again, and maybe I'll actually figure out how to play this, because I've looked at the piano music, just looking at it, and I'm just like, holy cow.
Yeah.
Like, it's so fast. It's all over the place, but I'm like, I have to figure it out someday. Like, maybe at some point in time I can get a keyboard or
Yeah.
something and figure out how to play that. Um, there's songs that are just so relatable as someone who's female, as somebody who fights mental illness, even as somebody who's autistic. The song for me that has always resonated with me more than anything else, even out of all their albums, has always been Girl Anachronism. And if you're someone who does not fit in, or you've always felt a little broken, you definitely need to take a listen to this song. It's loud, it's fast, it gets your heart pumping, and it's just one of those songs I just can't ever skip. It's so good and so powerful. They're currently on tour for the first time in years, and I mean years. Okay. Amanda, for a while, especially during COVID, was living in New Zealand with her son, and obviously she was stuck over there with everything going on with COVID. And then she finally came back to the States. Um, and with everything that's gone on in the world and everything, they decided to get back together. And I never got to see them back in the day, and, so unfortunately, all these shows are sold out, and it sold out fast,
Oh, I
but
bet.
it's because too, with everything that happened with Ticketmaster, and not too long ago, they did one show, that they decided to do, and they did it through Ticketmaster, and all the scalpers bought up those tickets fast and were selling them just, like completely outrageous prices. And so when they decided to do this tour, they decided to go through an independent ticket person. So they could not have scalpers take them. Prices didn't go past $50, because Amanda takes that seriously. Like, she wants true fans to be able
Mhm.
to afford the prices to get out to these shows. Especially with this tour, they only went to certain states. There was only like, oh my gosh, I think like 6 shows maybe. Like, there's not a lot of shows that they did for this tour. But I appreciate that as somebody who doesn't have a lot of money, but also as a band that truly appreciates their fans and wanting to make sure like the fans are getting the tickets, with everything that's gone with Ticketmaster.
That
And I really hope that after all of this, they do go on tour again. Maybe I'll finally get to see them because I really want to.
I hope you do. That would be so awesome. Cuz you deserve to see that because like her you talking about Amanda doing that with the
Yes.
scalpers reminded me of Billy Corgan did that when the Smashing Pumpkins were going to play Metro. Like that's the only time I've ever seen the Smashing Pumpkins was at
Yeah.
Metro, and I only got to do that because they did a raffle thing because they didn't want the scalpers. They wanted only real fans to get in. They did like a raffle where you could buy a ticket for like $10 and then or you could buy one, 100, whatever you wanted to, and then they would say, "Hey, you won." And you could essentially like I saw them for like $20 at Metro. And I loved that I love when artists are like that because it
Yeah.
is a hard time and I'm sure like artists don't want to do that. I'd like to believe they don't want to do the dynamic pricing, but they're probably like, eh. But I
Yeah.
love though that there's someone like that that is out there doing that because
Yeah.
like hearing you talk about that makes me want to check them out because I'm someone
Yeah.
that like 100% with everybody. I slept on this band. I remember the time they were bigger and I remember
Yeah.
hearing about them and seeing pictures and that cabaret aspect. And
Yes.
I never saw them live, but I want to say like they're like I did have an opportunity and it was with Panic at the Disco. Um but I didn't go, but I remember I want to say like Panic at the Disco and Dresden Doll like they were hand in
That makes
hand,
sense.
and it
Yeah.
totally makes sense, especially the
Yeah.
A Fever You Can't Sweat Out era for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I could see them being together. I could see that totally.
So I have to do some homework tonight
Yes.
again and report back because I want to listen. Like hearing you talk about
Absolutely.
that in the piano aspect and
Yes.
that,
Like,
like I do. I want to check it out now.
seeing them live, it adds a huge element because, like, yeah, you can connect to the music because
Right.
the music alone, like, is
Hmm.
amazing, but the fact is they're more than just music. Like, there is a full-on show. Sometimes they hire burlesque artists to come
Yeah.
and be at their shows. Like it is more than just the music. Like, you're getting a full on like artistic vision whenever you see them live. Like, they are so cool and just so talented, and you definitely need to see them live. Like, if you feel like the music alone wasn't doing it for you, I definitely suggest watching like videos of them on YouTube or something
Yeah.
where you can see them live too. Yeah.
Maybe I'll post some links to all these records too because I think if you that way you can find them in like or like YouTube. Maybe I'll look up a good video too and put it because I agree like from what I've heard of them, that was it. Like they're another band
Yeah.
you have to see live. Um so I need to check that out cuz like now I'm like hearing about this and I'm like, "Oh, I really slept on that record." So, but there were so
Well,
many.
it's they were like one of those bands too. Like, they were so different that
Mhm.
was like, because I'm like a piano nerd, but
Right.
also like I'm really into theatrical things and like, Rocky Horror Picture Show and like
Yeah. Oh,
those like
so
musical weird attributes that like they just did it for me, man. Like, even music alone and being somebody that loves piano, you don't hear a lot of like piano that's in anything other than like poppy things or stuff like that. So it was different and it was cool. And like Amanda, whenever they first started out, she shaved her eyebrows and would like draw them
yes.
on in the coolest pattern. And to this day is the reason why I constantly am like, just shave them off. Just shave
Mhm.
them off. It could be beautiful. Just And it's definitely one of those bands where, like, they are so different that a lot of people, I think, were put off by them a little bit,
Yep.
but, like, they are just so good, and it definitely helps seeing them visually as well as hearing them.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people have some homework to do because I know I have to do that. And I mean, my next record is very different than the Dresden Dolls, but still very impactful. And we have more to come, I want to say too, because there's so many records
Yeah.
that came out. But this time I gotta go War All the Time by Thursday. Um, and this record, still to this day, is another fall listening record for me, that fall winter mood. And I think Thursday in general is an artist that just feels like that fall winter mood.
Yeah.
Um, or as I call it, like when the weather hits 50 degrees, it's post-hardcore season, baby. So like
Yeah.
I say it all the time. I'm like, that's the time. And I have a funny story with Thursday, and it was before War All the Time, but just a little before that record. But I remember of getting into Thursday, and I had a crush on someone, and they were always like into amazing music. I mean, again, with like the band tees and all that, and they were kind of like my locker buddy. They were near me in my locker. And I remember him wearing a Thursday shirt and just talking about Thursday. And like, I heard of them, and I did like Full Collapse. I listened to them, but I kind of fell off for a little bit there too. And so I was like, oh, maybe I'll listen to that so like I can talk to them. And I dove head first into Thursday again. And honestly, I never talked to this boy after really digging back into Thursday, but I found one of my all-time favorite bands. So it's a win-win for me. I mean, I never talked to that boy, but
Something good came out of it,
something
you know?
good, great. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's like, but back to War All the Time. This record just opens up with like For the Workforce, Drowning, which is an incredible opening track for a record. And I think that's what also grabbed my attention immediately. And then you've got like Division Street, Signals Over the Air, Asleep in the Chapel, the title track, War All the Time, Tomorrow I'll Be You. I mean, again, this is another record. I could just list every single track and be like, this one, this one, this one. And this record just really blew me away. And it's one I constantly still go back to all these years later. And I think that's really something with the, you know, so many feel the same way. And this record could be really aggressive, in your face, and sort of throw you against a wall, but then also have some soft moments in Asleep in the Chapel before just exploding with those Jeff Rickley vocals that we all love so much. And I think if you love Thursday, you feel that way. And I think one thing I loved is during this era of Thursday is that they were 100% authentic. And I think that's what just also made me glued to them with this record. And again, if you were a new fan or are a new fan and getting into this music, please listen to this one. It's my top 10 records. It's on there, and I think it'll always be that way. And I can say, like, as a band, they're some of the kindest people around. I've had some interactions like from, being 17 until now. And Thursday really just got me through some really, really difficult times in my life. And a band I really clung to and still find myself doing so. And I mean, I remember there was a time I was going through a really hard time, and I was on Facebook, and some might be like, oh, that's creepy, but I was on Facebook and Jeff Rickley was on Messenger, and I messaged him to just say, like, your music means a lot to me and get me through a really hard time. And I don't even remember what I was going through, but it was something. And I remember it popped up and he responded. And again, people are like, oh, that wasn't him. But it 100% was.
Oh, yeah.
Um, because back in the day, it was just different. And he
Yeah, it was
responded and was
different.
like,
Yeah.
I'm really glad I got your message. This means so much. Sometimes, it can be lonely, and, you know, um, it's always great to hear that your music impacts fans. And I was like, oh, I'm going to try and get to your show. Like, they're playing something. And he was like, I really hope we get to meet someday. And we did years later for United Nations, a band he was in that was to this day why I think my ears are in pain and ring, because that show was the loudest, craziest show I have ever attended in my whole life. And if you've ever seen United Nations, but it was still one of the nicest people. And I think that's also what just carried me with Thursday. But I mean, this record, they just really put some really incredible work. And I feel like it still gets slept on at times. Like, I know people talk Full Collapse as they should. The Waiting EP, absolutely. You got to touch on that. But War All the Time, like that one, for me, I mean, I love Full Collapse. I'm not taking away from it. But War All the Time is just my favorite from them. And I think it just really impacted my music taste then too, because like I just got into louder and more aggressive things from Thursday. But I mean, for you, did you have anything that stuck out about, well, either Thursday or this record?
Yeah, no, I loved Thursday.
Hmm.
I like you said, like they're so like loud, and it helps you like find other like loud bands. It can
Yeah.
be kind of like a gateway band to like
Yep.
finding
Oh,
even more hardcore.
yep.
Um, I know I got to see them. I've only seen them live once, and I got to see them in New Jersey
Oh,
actually
wow.
for a New Year's show that
Yes.
they did with Anthony Green when he was doing solo shows out there, and it was so good. Like so good. Like it was just so cool being able to see like a band like from the area they come from. Like I
Yes.
don't know if people understand, like if you're able to see a band in like the city from around where they come from, like it adds like such an awesome element to seeing them, because you have like all the diehards that have been there since like the early days.
Yep.
They're extra pumped because they're home. It was such an awesome show, and yes, like I have nothing but good things to say about Thursday. I think they're wonderful.
That's so interesting you bring that up about it had to be Starland Ballroom.
Yes, it
Because
was. Yeah,
yeah, because ever since I moved here, I moved to New Jersey. I'm about 30 minutes from Sayreville. So I'm about 30 minutes from Starland Ballroom. And I went to a New Year's Eve show here. And I was like, right away when they announced that, I was like, we're
yeah,
going. Because again, like you said, I have to see them live in New Jersey
yeah,
for my life to kind of come full circle. I need to do this. So I go, oh, yeah. Like one of the best times I've seen Thursday was here in New Jersey. And like
yeah,
you could just feel that room, no matter what they played. Newer
yeah,
stuff that like doesn't really hit a lot with other people, but like seeing them at Starland is such a highlight. And anytime I'm like, all right, where's the Thursday show? Like, okay, oh, it's in New
yeah,
York. I could go. No, where's the New Jersey one? And they always play here because,
yeah.
like they always will. So I'm so lucky, but I agree with that. And so I do. I can't. But um, I guess I just want to kind of wrap it up and say, like, thanks, you know, so much for listening to Justine and I share these first few albums from from the year 2003 that really impacted us. And I think you can hear that how much they did. And we're definitely going to do more and
Yeah.
share more of these because it's just such an important time for music. And clearly, like, they've impacted us. They've impacted so many. And I'd really love to hear um, anybody else that thought of these records and how they impacted you. And, um, you know, to find out which records we are talking about next, you'll have to come back and listen for that and find out because I'm not gonna. I thought about putting them on. Hey, I'm gonna put them on before. No, maybe you'll just have to listen and find out which ones.
Yeah. Nice little surprise.
Yep, like comment and message us your thoughts. Because again, yeah, I want to hear how they've impacted you. And thanks so much again, and we will see you next time. And I guess we're gonna see you next time. All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.